Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lords of Limited. My name is Ben Warning, joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan, Projector, Inspector, Sachs. Ethan, we're taking a look back at the best of worst of 2024, and that card is forever going to be in my memory from 2024.
Yeah, I had, I think, 3 of them in my Pro Tour deck in Chicago for Murders at Karlov Manor. That set, so spoiler alert, I didn't love a lot of the sets in 2024, but I think I really did like Murders, but it's hard to know if it's because like I had so much intense focus on it. But looking back on it was as we did for going through to find some cards for all these categories, I feel like that set would hold up if we went back and drafted it again.
That's how it would definitely hold up. But 2024 was very hit or miss for me. 3 hits, 3 misses. But I think a good year for Magic overall, and certainly progressing the game forward. But it's weird doing these episodes. I think people would say, oh, this episode doesn't take much work. Like, this is probably the episode I do the most prep for. But it's really fun doing the prep. Like, going back through all of our old 50 takes for each format, going back through all of our format predictions for each format, and just like randomly scrolling Scryfall. It's a very fun walk down memory lane.
Yeah. It felt like a slog at the start. And then by the end, I was like, because we did this, we're recording a little bit early so that we have a holiday break. We did these, like, I think I prepped these before we even recorded the last episode. And so then I was like, I want to do this one. Like the episodes where we.
That's how I felt too. Yeah. I don't want to talk about Pioneer Master.
Right. Like the episodes where we get to come to the show with separate lists in any respect. But this episode is it's 100% separate lists. It's so fun because I know what I'm going to say, but I have no idea what you're going to say. And are we going to have overlap or not? What's your best worst of these categories? So that's what we're doing. We've got 16 different categories to take a look at, and we'll be most of them just best, but we've got some best and worst. And maybe we'll chat about as we go through some tweaks of some categories that we'd like to see retired for next year. Folks out there, if you have some categories you'd like to see or you feel like, don't want to see anymore, I feel like we've got some really good feedback in the past as we've done this and have tweaked the list and looking forward to tweaking it some more. But that's what we've got going on today. So let's get some housekeeping and dive into these lists. We'll chat about the Patreon page. Patreon.com/Lords of Limited is where folks can go to get back to the show. It's hopping, it's popping. That's the Discord, of course, what everybody who goes back via the Patreon gets access to. I'm looking forward to the Discord in 2025. Certainly looking forward to more episodes of Lords Unlimited in 2025 and access to the episodes a day early and ad-free if you want to sign up at the Soldier tier and be at that reward tier and get that podcast feed into your podcast apps. And just really, really thankful as I look back on 2024 to all of the support we've gotten via the Patreon. So to everybody out there, past, present, and future patrons, thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Yeah, cannot say thank you enough. And not just patrons, anybody who supports the show, anybody who takes time to send a Twitter comment, just anybody who supports our content in any way. It truly is a blessing to be able to do this. Happy holidays to all of you, and thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, anything you want to get out of the way before we get into our first category? Like any thoughts about the list in general, or do you want to save that as we get to it? Because I know you have some thoughts about maybe some categories that you could take or leave.
No, I think we'll just do that as we hit them, and then I've got some wrap up thoughts at the end as well.
Okay. Yeah, you like a good summary. Maybe that's the teacher in you. So like as the bell's gonna ring in a couple minutes, let's review what we've discussed.
Let's try to pack like the 3 most important things. Yes, you need to remember that this hashtag looking thing is a sharp and not a flat. Let's push save on that.
I'm kind of embarrassed that it has taken me 407 episodes to realize that's why you always do that at the end of every episode. Any final thoughts? Okay, our first category is best common removal spell. And I'm going to have you go first because I still don't know which is my winner and which is my honorable mention.
Ooh, slam dunk for me. Best Unable to Scream from Duskmourn. Blue for the enchantment. Gives something, turns it into what does it turn it into? I don't even know what this card does anymore. Hang on.
It's a toy.
Turns it into an O2 toy that loses all abilities, and if it's face down, it can't be turned face up. I think I pegged this early access, or pre-early access, like pre-format. Pegged this spell is powerful. Like it's different than the other spells of its variation, and I am thrilled to give it the best common removal spell award of 2024.
I love that for you. I can't believe you forgot what it turned it into because it's Swords to Toy Shares.
That's right.
I felt like it was the year of -2/-2 effects, and I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have recency bias, and I'm gonna say that Stab gets my best common removal spell of the year, the single black -2/-2 from Foundations, with an honorable mention to Savor from Bloomburrow. One in a black, -2/-2, plus get a food.
Wow, the year of the -2/-2. Those neither of those made my OLI. My OLI outside looking in for those of you who aren't obsessed with sports podcasts. Galvanic Discharge from MH3. Red for the instant. Get 3 energy, and then you can pay any amount of energy to deal X to a creature or planeswalker. And then another one that really stuck out to me as I was scrolling through. I don't think this is the best, but it's the best that I underrated somehow. But Throw from the Saddle, OTJ. I just couldn't get
Oh yeah.
looking at that one. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +1/+1, and then it gets a +1/+1 counter if it's a mount. And it deals damage equal to its power to a creature you don't control. I didn't want to give it to that one. That's what I was thrilled when I found Unable to Scream and felt like that's what I do. I scroll until I find one where I feel like, yes, that's
Yeah.
it. The one.
Yeah, that's how you know. It's also like this was the year of common removal spells being back a little bit, or I should say, common removal spells being generally the top commons in their respective colors and in those sets.
Yeah, and I liked it. It was a nice change of pace.
All right, number 2, best and worst common creature.
We got to be overlapped for the best here. I would assume.
I zagged.
You zagged? Mine is Writhing Chrysalis, the purple people eater. 2 red green for the 2/3. When you cast it, make 2/01 Eldrazi spawn, and when you sacrifice another Eldrazi, put a +1/+1 counter on Writhing Chrysalis. We have never had a cold open in the history of Lords of Limited, and this creature inspired it. How does this not win the best common creature award?
Well, because I took some creative license and I called it the worst common creature.
Okay.
Of the year. I think this card was a mistake. I think it was a stain or a blight on the format, if you will. And I do not fondly remember this card. I felt like sealed for this format specifically. This was like my only time that I went to a paper RCQ, and it just feels like that's the Writhing Chrysalis lottery, and that's no fun.
Yeah, that's fair, but I think certainly whether you want to view it as best or worst,
Yeah.
an award-winning common creature from 2024, an iconic creature from
For sure.
2024. My honorable mention for best was Novice Inspector. White for the 1/2, make a clue token.
And that is my winner for best common creature.
Starting to steal your thunder. Wow.
Yeah. No, it's all good. But please tell us what your worst common creature is.
I have two worst. My worst is Malevolent Chandelier, but I loved it anyway.
Yep. Okay.
6-mana 4/4 flyer that you could pay 2 at sorcery speed to put a card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. And my OLI for worst common creature was Living Phone, 2 and a white for the 2/1. And whenever it died, you look at the top 5 and get a real creature card power 2 or less and put it in your hand.
Okay.
I knew that would tilt you.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fine. That's good. Number 3, common build around, which I was unsure if this category worked anymore. And then you were like, no, it does. And then I think I must have found the same card that you have, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, best common build around for me, Sneaky Snacker from MH3. Blue-black for a 2/1 flyer. When you draw your 3rd card in a turn, return Sneaky Snacker from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, I messaged you. I said, should we just delete this category? You're like, no, I found one that I'm happy with from MH3. I was like, okay. So I started scrolling through MH3 common creatures, and immediately, because it's alphabetical, I came across Area Auxiliary, which is the 3 and a white 3/3 flyer. When it enters, you support 2. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of it. I wonder if that's what Ben's talking about. So I typed that in my little Google Doc and kept scrolling, and then finally got to S, and then had the feeling you were describing where I was like, oh, that's what it is. It's Sneaky Snacker. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to number 4, lands. There were a ton of lands in contention for best land this year. This was a year of good lands.
Well, why don't you go first? Because I don't have any OLIs for my best.
No OLIs. I've got several OLIs. Should we start with the OLIs or should we start with the best?
I guess. But yeah, whatever you want to do.
I'm going to start with the best. I think the most iconic land of the year for me, and maybe this is recency bias, but Rogue's Passage.
Yeah.
I've come to have a huge respect for that card. Taps to add a colorless, and you can pay 4 tap. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Really, really value this, even more than in Foundations in Pioneer Masters. I think it's got a home, like it's an important card both places. And I hate to say it, but shout out to the data. I would not have been turned on to this card mattering if it hadn't been for Sukrivitz talking about game and hand win rate. So got to give it up where the credit is due.
Yes, and we should mention, because we haven't yet, but you did just mention Pioneer Masters. Pioneer Masters cards not in consideration for these awards, although Ben is citing it with Rogue's Passage. But we are only looking at the main, air quotes, main set. So Murders, Outlaws Thunder Junction, Modern Horizons 3, Bloomburrow, Duskmourn, and Foundations. I don't know if it's the best land, but it's the land I had the most fun with in 2024. And that's Nesting Grounds from Modern Horizons 3. It taps for a colorless, and you can pay 1, tap, move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent, activate only as a sorcery. When I realized you could move persist -1/-1 counters off of your creatures onto your opponent's creatures, that's the wheel spinning that I like to find in my limited decks.
For sure. And that was in my OLI, as well as the MH3 fetch lands were just incredible. Very cool designs. The fact that they were untapped colorless and then evolving wilds for 3. They had the cycling, so you knew which 3 colors they could go and get, even if you rarely cycled them. Just a banger, clean design.
Well, and there was stuff in that format that cared about you like sacrificing permanents too, so it had like little synergy there as well.
Right. Well, and there was the landfall stuff. You could get double landfall triggers. Yeah, just really cool. And then this is a category I would like to get rid of, but worst land. I think this needs to go. I was just struggling to find a worst land. I finally settled on Snow-Covered Wastes from MH3.
Oh, this is so funny. I have 2. I have 2 for my worst lands. I did not have any trouble finding them. So I think the worst land for me of 2024 was Arid Archway from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So this entered tapped. And when it enters, you return a land you control to its owner's hand. And if another desert was returned this way, you surveil 1. And it taps for 2 colorless. And I feel like you and I had this feeling. A lot of boomers in the limited community had the feeling of Karus are back. The Karu lands, the bounce lands. What value can we get from these lands? And the answer was none. The answer was this was a bad card. And generally, you should not have put this in your limited deck. And it wasn't a high pick. And it just wasn't good. And I feel like this is a lesson you and I learn set after set after set, which is like limited is not about incremental value from lands anymore. Like there was a time when that was true, and that time is past. So Arid Archway gets the win for me for worst land of 2024.
So funny. I almost put that on my list, and I was like, I just can't do it. I couldn't do it. I still like it. I still think it's got some goods there.
And my honorable mention is the Cycle of Lands from Bloomburrow that tapped for colorless, tapped for a color only to be spent on a creature spell, and then had an activated ability. I'm specifically talking about Lilypad Village, which I have a traumatic memory of in a blue-green frogs deck, where I couldn't activate my Lily Splash mentor, the like 2 green-blue signpost, because this was my only blue source. I was playing on Magic Online, and my opponent was like, "You could have won like 4 turns ago." Twitch chat was like, "Why aren't we activating our Lily Splash mentor?" And it was because of this stupid land.
That's fair. That's a good answer. That's the correct one. It's the Bloomburrow lands.
All right, number 5, the best golden egg from 2024. The nominees.
Yes, we should list the nominees first.
Are Gravestone Strider from Murders at Karlov Manor, the 1/3 artifact that you could
1 to filter mana that you could activate once each turn, and 2 to exile it from your graveyard to exile target card from a graveyard.
And then Mirage Mesa from OTJ, that was the ETB tapped land. You pick a color and it taps for that color, and it's a desert.
There's Fountainport Bell, the artifact that could tap, sack, search up a...
There's Glimmerlight / Clockwork Percussionist. Is Clockwork Percussionist really eligible?
I don't think so. I think it's Glimmerlight.
Okay.
From DSK.
Glimmerlight from Duskmourn. That's the 2-mana artifact that makes a Glimmer token, and it's short sword, pay 1 to equip it to a creature, and it gives +1/+1.
From MH3, Smelted Charge Bug, 1 and a red for the 1/3 menace. ETBs to give you 2 energy, and whenever it attacks, you can pay an energy to give another target attacking creature +1/+0 and menace until end of turn. The little bug that could.
And in Foundations, Burglar Rat, 1 and a black, 1/1 ETBs, target player discards a card.
All right, I'm going to go first. My winner, Gravestone Strider from MKM. The card was so cool, so gluey. It's in the tradition of the golden eggs of doing something small to fix your mana, but the fact that it did that and then also was a really cool combo piece with the black-green Insidious Roots deck, chalk outline, all that sort of stuff. It was too good.
Yeah. I also, in the spirit of the Golden Egg, a colorless card, I did put Fountain Port Bell as my winner. Because this card, if I may say, it was a grower, not a shower for me in the format. Like I feel like I came in hot. I was like, this card stinks. And then as the format progressed, I was like, no, it does. I feel like it does this little thing that I like, and I like it here, and for Threshold. And so Fountain Port Bell for me.
I think that's 4th place for me. I think my power rankings go
I don't
Strider.
think it's the best of these cards.
That's just in order of liking them. I just what I would in terms of the number of votes received from me and my academy.
Sure.
I think it's Gravestone Strider 1, Charge Bug 2, Glimmerlight 3, and then probably Burglar Rat, then Fountain Port Bell, then Mirage Mesa. I think Fountain Port Bell is bringing up the rear for me.
Okay, fine. Well, my academy.
It's your list. It's your list.
I know. I'm allowed. Number 6, a variation on a theme. So this is a reprint with a twist. So it's a card we've seen before, but not quite an actual functional reprint. I wonder if we have the same one here.
I have 2, and they're both quite painful for me to admit that they are tied, which is Malevolent Rumble and Cash Grab.
Wow. Now, is Malevolent Rumble... I feel like, was Malevolent Rumble a variation on a theme? I feel like that was sort of the start of this kind of card.
No, because we've seen stuff like Commune with the Gods. We've seen this green 2-mana sorcery dump something in the yard and get a thing.
Yeah, no, we haven't. Malevolent Rumble as dump a thing in the yard plus get a rectangle. That's the first of its kind, and then Cash Grab.
But that's the iteration. That's the variation on the theme, right? Is getting the thing, like green thing that searches up a thing, dumps cards in your graveyard, but then also they tacked on this other thing which juiced up the cards significantly. And I think I did not like Malevolent Rumble, still don't. Cash Grab I liked from the beginning, and I thought Cash Grab was great in green black. But I think both of these cards,
you did not like it from the beginning. Just let's revisionist history. If we're talking about the actual beginning, the crash course, no, you were low on this card. Yes.
No.
Okay, we gotta go to the tapes.
I think I said Cash Grab was going to be great in green black exactly, and that was it. And it turns out it was just great in general in green decks. But I said it was going to be. I said it was going to be excellent in green black. I just like to get that out there.
Okay, that's fair. I thought we would both have the same one. I'm at least surprised you don't have this on your list. Final Vengeance from Duskmourn. Single black, exile a creature, and as an additional cost to cast it, you sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. And the or an enchantment part of Final Vengeance in the context of Duskmourn made this card way better than the usual Bone Splinters types that we've seen.
That's fair. I like that. That didn't even make my list. A couple others to shout out. On the Job from MKM. 2 white for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, and then Investigate. That card was just incredible.
Yeah, the fact that you could go 2-drop, 3-drop, attack, and your opponent doesn't block, and you still go, okay,
great. I've still got On the Job.
Okay, deal you 4, draw a card. Sounds like a good play for my turn 4 here.
Well, or you didn't even have to do that. You just hold it for the next time. You could play another creature and then swing out again. It was just so brutal. And another one that I think was the coolest card of its kind that we've seen is Highway Robbery. 1 in a red for a sorcery. You can discard a card or sacrifice a land. If you do draw 2 cards, it had plot for 1 in a red. The fact that you could plot this on turn 2 and then do it later in the game was really, really sweet. Very cool Tormenting Voice variant.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
All right, that takes us on to category number 7, which is the best and worst uncommon removal spell. You go first for best. I want to hear what you got.
This feels like a unanimous vote for me. Hunter's Talent from Bloomburrow. 1 and a green. Enchantment class. When it enters, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control, and then level it up. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 against trample until end of turn. Level it up again at the beginning of your end step. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. I mean, this was a removal spell that won you the game.
This was a removal spell that won you the game. Much like Writhing Chrysalis, you zigged. I zagged here. I put that as the worst uncommon removal spell. I hated Hunter's Talent in that format so much. This was the format, I think I did 12, 15, some absurd number of Arena Open bullets. Never once had a Hunter's Talent and just played against it constantly every run. I loathe Hunter's talent, and I think much like Writhing Chrysalis, I think it was terrible for Bloomburrow.
I agree with that.
For me, best uncommon removal spell. I got to give props where props is due. Sheltered by Ghosts, best uncommon removal spell.
Sports.
Huge W for you. 1 and a white for an aura from Dustmore and enchant creature you control. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghosts leaves the battlefield. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has lifelink and ward 2. Here's why I gave this the best. I think this is a very well designed, powerful removal spell because it still takes some deck building. You can't just slam it in every white deck and have it be great. You have to be aggressive or proactive, or like it wants some other things from you. It has a range of power, and to really hit the top end of the range, you got to do some deck building, and that's what I want from my powerful uncommon removal spells.
Yeah, I like it. My worst I gave to an actual worst removal spell, which is not on my watch, from Murders at Karlov Manor. 1 and a white for an instant, exile target attacking creature. This card, I just had to like keep being like, no. This card is actually like, I don't like to use the U word. This is unplayable. Like a removal spell that, and white was an aggressive color in that format. So having a reactive removal spell that didn't clear a blocker, that's already bad. And then the fact that this wasn't even exile a tapped creature, but exile target attacking creature. So it had to be timed correctly. You couldn't then top deck it and be like, cool, I'll kill your tapped thing that hit me last turn that I'm having a trouble dealing with. No. Not on my watch is not in my deck. That's what I say.
Love it. That takes us on to number 8, uncommon creatures. What do you got going on here for best and worst?
Okay, my best uncommon creature is Outcaster Greenblade from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. 2 and a green, 1/2. When it enters, search your library for a basic land or desert, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, and it gets +1/+1 for each desert you control.
All right. My best uncommon creature, and I think my favorite creature of the year, Brood Spinner, black-green, 2/3 for the uncommon with reach. ETBs Surveil 2, and you can pay 4 black-green, tap it, sacrifice it to create a number of 1/1 insect creature tokens with flying, equal to the total number of card types among cards in your graveyard. Played with that little guy a lot in Dustmore and won a lot with it.
I'm more excited.
OLIs for you?
No, I, you know me. I keep it clean. I keep it tight.
You do keep it clean. I just have so much love for Magic cards. I just want to get them all out into the void. So I have 2 OLIs, which are the shout out to blue-green build-arounds. So Evidence Examiner, kicking things off from Murders at Karlov Manor from the start of the year. Blue-green for the 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can collect evidence 4, and whenever you collect evidence, investigate. Followed up by, at the end of the year, from Duskmourn, Oblivious Bookworm, blue-green for the 2/3. At the beginning of your end step, you can draw a card. If you do, discard a card, unless a permanent entered face down under your control, or you turn a permanent face up. Both those cards were amazingly powerful. I think brought blue-green back as an archetype after, it being bad for a lot of sets in a row.
I thought you were going to shout out Doc Orlock from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Shout out to blue-green for sure, back to back. I'm more excited to talk about my worst uncommon creature of 2024.
Do we have the same one here? What do you have?
Shivan Dragon.
Oh, you're the worst. That is not mine. It did get a mention in my list somewhere though.
I will say Shivan Dragon could have made its way into, I don't know, 4 different categories on this list. But I decided to put it as worst uncommon creature because I feel like it really, as a downshifted card, really makes it seem as atrocious as it was. 4 red, 5/5 flyer, and it has fire breathing +1/+0. This they should have just left this in alpha. Just let us remember it fondly. You don't need to show it to us here in the format.
My worst uncommon creature is Miasma Demon. 4 black for the 5/4 flyer. When ETBs, you can discard any number of cards. When you do, up to that many target creatures each get -2/-2 until end of turn. This is from Dustmore. I think this was the card both you and I might have individually graded highest in the Dustmore set review, and it was atrocious.
Yeah, maybe one of my notes for myself for 2025 is like, just try to please grade 6 drops correctly, Ethan. Like it's really hard, but let's just try and do it. All right, category number 9. Best and worst uncommon build-arounds. And this really was the year of build-arounds are back.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe I'm just biased with how things got kicked off, but I feel like play boosters really, because of the shift of there's more uncommons And so I feel like there's more space to play with there, that you do have build around uncommons in a way that we hadn't for a long time.
Yeah, that's fair.
You seem unexcited. I actually do. This is a category that I like quite a bit. So I do have an honorable mention
Ooh.
as well as it's a winner, but they're hand in hand winners. So my winners are Chalk Outline and Insidious Roots from Murders at Karlov Manor. I guess if I have to pick one, it's got to be Chalk Outline, 3 and a green enchantment. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token, then investigate. And Insidious Roots was black-green for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, you make an 0/1 plant creature token and then put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control, and your creature tokens tap for a mana of any color.
Yeah, those are great and deserving winners. Insidious Roots was my OLI for this category. I feel very good about my winner, though. I'm surprised it's not on your list.
I mean, you don't know what my honorable mention is.
I thought you said those were co-winners, and one of them was your honorable mention.
No. I have an honorable mention, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not your winner.
My winner is Essence Reliquary from MH3. 2 and a white for an artifact. Tap, return another target permanent you control, and all auras you control attached to it to their owner's hand. Activate only during your turn. What couldn't this card do? Could re-trigger ETBs. Could pick up MDFCs. Hit your land drops when you miss them, like pseudo for a turn. Turn off your opponent's aura removal. You could chump attack with things. It picked up sagas. Essence Reliquary was a blast to play with. And I went through a phase where I just, for 2 weeks in MH3, just drafted like I was going to get Essence Reliquary. And sometimes you did, and sometimes you didn't. I had an amazing time, regardless of whether or not I got it.
My pick for my favorite, this is probably my favorite, but not the best uncommon build around, was Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab from Duskmourn. The room that had whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you make a 2/2 black horror enchantment creature token, triggers only once each turn, and then Cadaver Lab was Raise Dead. I loved that card.
Yeah, very good card. All right, moving on to the worst. For me, got to be Brimstone Roundup from OTJ. 1 and a red for the enchantment. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery, and it could plot, not at a discount, but for a whopping 1 mana increase of 2 and a red.
You got to pay. You want to cast this for free later? You got to pay for that.
That's right.
Yeah, that card was terrible, as well as mine, which is Bespoke Battle Wagon, 3 and a blue for a 5/6 vehicle from Modern Horizons 3, and had 4 activated abilities. Tap to get 2 energy, tap, pay 2 energy, tap a creature, tap, pay 3 energy, draw a card, pay 4 energy to turn it into an artifact creature until end of turn, and you could crew it for 4. And all of those abilities add up to a card that you should just not put in your deck.
Whoa, sir, please. Yeah. That is not true. I love a Bespoke Battle Wagon.
This was not a build around, though. This was so clunky. You could never play this and use it as an energy producer.
Correct.
You had to have energy.
For this card to be good, you had to have 4 energy available so that you could turn it into a 5/6. But if you met that requirement, this card was a problem.
I think this card stinks, and I
didn't
like looking at it when I scrolled through the spoilers. So that's how I knew it was the winner.
Got to get that visceral reaction. That's right. All right, moving on to rares and mythics. I have a slam dunk winner here for best in rares and mythics, and that award goes to Cursed Recording from Duskmourn. 2 red for an artifact. Tap whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn. Copy that spell. You can choose new targets for the copy. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you put a time counter on it. And then if there's 7 or more time counters on it, remove those counters, and it deals 20 damage to you. This card was an incredibly fun build around rare. There was so much sweet stuff you could do with it. I 20'd myself one time and lived through it thanks to the black drain, deal 2, gain 2. And then when you copy this, it's like my life total was like 32 when I went off and did 20 to myself. So survived that. There were ways to reset the time counters on this. Loved Cursed Recording. For some reason, other people didn't, and you could just get it late into the format, fairly late. This was by far my favorite Magic card of 2024.
Oh my gosh, I love that. My card is also from Duskmourn, but it's actually just like the best rare that I could find in the year, which is Valgavoth's Onslaught. XX green for a sorcery, manifest red X times, then put X +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. This was beatable. Like it's not like the most egregious rare ever, but the fact that this was splashable made it pretty egregious, I think.
Yeah, much like Writhing Chrysalis, that is in my worst, and I think it wins the
Yeah.
worst for me because of that, because it was so powerful. The splashable thing. If it was green, like sure, sign me up. Like you get an OLI in the best
Yeah.
category or whatever, being a bomb. But the fact that it was splashable was just horrible, I think, for that format. And I think one of the worst things in Dustmorn, which was a banger format.
Yeah, for sure. So for my worst, I do have a couple OLIs. One is just another way to neg Shivan Dragon, which is Niv Mizzet Visionary from Foundations, which is basically just Shivan Dragon in mythic rare clothing. I have like read this card so much. I'm like 4 blue red, 5/5 flyer. Like every Niv Mizzet that we've had before has been an absolute banger. This does nothing. I also have all of the ley lines in Duskmorn because I would not be me remembering 2024 if I didn't talk about opening ley line after ley line in Duskmorn.
That's
Though
a good shout.
you almost sold me with your pitch for them being good for the format. That like it's nice that there's some blanks in the rare slot there because it gives space for some other things and then doesn't make everybody have nutso decks. My actual winner for worst rare of the year is Relive the Past, sort of an appropriate title for this episode. This is 5 green white for a sorcery for Murders at Karlov Manor. Return up to 1 target artifact card, up to 1 target land card, and up to 1 target non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. They are 5/5 elemental creatures in addition to their other types. I tried to make this card work so many times, and it doesn't. It doesn't work. This is not like, this looks like a build around to go after or a something or a blah. It's nothing. This card's terrible.
Card is nothing. You heard it here first, folks. I have an OLI for my best, which is the other rare that I was obsessed with in a different format, which is Chthonian Nightmare from Modern Horizons 3.
Oh.
1 and a black for an enchantment. When it ETBs, you get 3 energy. Pay X energy, sacrifice creature, return Chthonian Nightmare to its owner's hand, return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. Chthonian Nightmare was sick to build around in that format, much like Cursed Recording. Didn't quite hit Cursed Recording's levels of enjoyment for me, but partially because you didn't get to play with it as often because everybody knew that it was great.
You barely need to call it a build around. Like, you just put creatures in your deck.
You just put creatures in your deck, but you could do some really gross stuff with a Curse Marauder, which was super fun.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I have an OLI for worst also, which is Ezram Agency Chief. 1 white, blue for a 5/5 flyer. When it ETBs, you investigate twice, and you can pay 1, sack an artifact to give your choice of Vigilance, Lifelink, or Hexproof until end of turn. Hexproof is just horrible. The ability to give things Hexproof is horrible. Pioneer Masters has thoroughly reinforced that for me. Like, the protection from a color is atrocious, and the Hexproof is atrocious. And I think I felt that when I looked at Ezram Agency Chief from MKM.
Wow. Another card that was featured in my Pro Tour. I have a stamped copy of Ezram up in my closet. I can't believe you would slander him like that.
All right.
Best and worst, or hottest and coldest takes during preview season. You go first.
I have so many. So many OLIs here. I'm going to go with that. My best hot take during preview season was that we needed a numbers and letters grading scale.
That is so true. You just came up with that on the fly, off the cuff. And
Everyone hates it.
I yes-anded you harder than any improver in the history of improv has. And then we just stuck with it. And I don't think everybody hates it. I think there's actually a lot of people out there who like it. And I'll tell you, and even if you think it's whatever, clunky or it's not for you, I think it's undoubtedly led to better discussions on
the crash
show.
course, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It really just like lets us zero in on these are the cards we want to talk about.
All right. OLIs?
Not for my list is clean. Why don't you go?
List is clean. All right.
Yeah.
So I'll get my OLIs out. Unable to Scream, being blues,
Yes.
Swords to Plowshares. That commons were back with Foundations, and the Esper
Yeah.
was where it was going to be. Like, pegged all that prior to the start of Foundations. Builder's Talent from Bloomburrow. 1 and a white for the Saga that made an 0/4, and then whenever 1 or more non-creature, non-land permanents entered, you put a +1/+2 counter on target creature, and then you could level it up for 4 and a white to become level 3 when you could return target non-creature, non-land permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I could see that card had potential.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, one more dig here. Slimy Dual Leech, better than Night Drinker Moroi.
Sure. Yes, it was. The battle of the black 4-drops. No surprise, my best take during preview season was Dreadwing Scavenger as Smuggler's Copter.
Yes, for sure. Knew that was going to be on your list.
And my worst take was Wickerfolk Thresher is the best uncommon in Duskmorn.
I also saw that when I was scrolling through our grading spreadsheets. I have several worse for me as well. Dreadmobile from MH3. I was so hot and bothered about this card.
I was
2 and a black
too.
for a 3/3 artifact vehicle with menace. Pay 1 to sacrifice another artifact creature to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you could crew it for 1. I don't know how this card failed still. It still looks like a good Magic card to me, and it was atrocious in that format.
Yeah.
It took me losing with it a lot before I was finally like, okay, I'll wave the white flag. This card didn't get there.
Yep.
I was so hot and bothered about it. Another one, I did not have a Killer Among Us in my top green commons from MKM. Like, I thought that was like, oh, cute, flavorful card, like really cool. And it turned out to be just one of the best cards in Murders at Karlov Manor. And also just a very sweet card, too. Like, cool design, cool flavor, and powerful. Just the total package. And I just missed that it was a good Magic card.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one that was kind of both of us, also thanks to my numbers and letters grading scale, we projected red white to be like the 9th best archetype in Duskmorn because we both rated Midnight Mayhem and Arabella pretty lowly. And we did that thing where we were like, the signpost uncommon power levels, kind of what determines the archetypes. And then we just missed completely on both of those cards being banger uncommons.
Yeah. Oh, Arabella is one of my favorite cards of the year, probably. So that definitely doubly hurts with how I remember that card.
All right, that takes us on to number 12, card that surprised you the most. Also, however you want to think of it, the biggest mover up. I've got several OLIs here and a winner. I'm sure you've got a clean list again. I love Magic cards. What can I say? Well, this is for that. It's for reminiscing, right?
It says the man who doesn't have to edit the episode. Go ahead.
So my winner is a Cursed Marauder from MH3. This is 1 and a black for the 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature. I thought that was going to be hope to never put it in my deck. And by the end of the format, it was hope to have it in my deck as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I like it. All
right, what's your winner?
Builder's Talent. Card that I like. You already mentioned it. I fought you about it in the crash course. I was like, this card doesn't matter. And it's honestly my favorite card from Bloomburrow for sure. And one of my favorite cards from the year. Just love it. Absolutely love Builder's Talent.
My next 3, all OLIs, and all, I just want to give credit where credit is due again. Would not have found all 3 of these cards, I don't think, without the data. So shout out to 17 Lands. Bashful Beastie from Duskmorn, 4 and a green for the 5/4. And whenever it dies, you manifest dread. Savor from Bloomburrow, 1 and a black for the instant. Something gets -2/-2, make a food token.
That's a worse take from us. That this was on neither of our top 10 commons list. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, not great. And Cactarantula from OTJ, 3 green for the 6/5. And then whenever it was targeted, you drew a card, 6/5 reach.
I also love that you called it 3GG because it was actually
4GG and was what, a mana cheaper if you had a desert or something, 2 deserts?
Correct, 1 desert, yeah.
And then biggest mover down.
Biggest mover down for me is Rakish Crew from Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Ooh, that's a good shout.
2 and a black for an enchantment. When it enters, you make a 1/1 mercenary token. And then whenever an outlaw you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. Bastion's Remembrance is a card that you and I both hold very dear from Ikoria. We recognized this wasn't quite that, but thought for sure for the Outlaws deck or whatever, this card was bad. This is just not a good Magic card.
I almost put that in my worst build around, but I didn't know if that met the build around.
It's not even a builder. It's just a
bad card.
Don't play me. Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest mover down for me was Patient Naturalist from OTJ. The 2 and a green, 2/3 that whenever ETB'd, you milled 3 cards and you could put a land from your graveyard into your hand. I was obsessed with that card and Rise of the Varmints and all that sort of stuff, and tried so hard for the first 2 weeks of the format to make it happen. And my win rate was just atrocious at the beginning of that format, largely because I was just wrong about Patient Naturalist. I thought Patient Naturalist was it, and it was not it, in fact. You just wanted to play green cards that were big and crush people with your big green cards.
Yeah.
And then a shout out to Miasma Demon here also. I think huge mover down for both of us.
So nice, he listed it twice.
That's right.
Number 13, best and worst reprint. I guess I have a tie. I mean, it's a real winner because I have to do it for you. Overrun from Foundations.
Ooh, you'll love to see it. Thank you.
I mean, the card that I have just crapped on year after year. And finally, I was like, it's so good. And I fondly remember, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about green in relation to the actual airtime we gave Foundations. But figuring out like, oh, Overrun is actually like more important than Elvish Regrower in our minds. Like that should be more of a hook into green because of what it does. And I guess my OLI would be Phyrexian Arena, another card that like bad, 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 and then excellent in Foundations.
Yeah, Foundations was huge, almost like not fair for the reprint category because usually there's not a set full of reprints like that. But
Correct.
both of my winners are from Foundations as well. Best for me, Vampire Nighthawk, 1/black for the 2/3 flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. That card holds up.
Yeah, it really does. I will also fondly remember us in real time being like, "Is this the best uncommon? Like, is this what we should be talking about?" Yeah.
Yeah, so Vampire Nighthawk. Pour one out, my worst, Sheevan Dragon. 4 red for the 5/5 flyer. Red, fire breathing, give it +1/+0 until end of turn. Why do they have to do Sheevan Dragon dirty like that? Like, if it was gonna be bad, just leave it out. Like every other card, like that was iconic. Sarah Angel still held up. All these other cards held up. And then Sheevan Dragon was just nope, sorry. Even downshifted from rare. That was a bummer for me. And then my OLI for worst, Skullduggery from OTJ. Black for the instant gives them +1/+1, and another creature -1/-1. That was the worst Skullduggery had been ever.
Yeah, that card was bad. My worst reprint because, again, how could you take a card I held so dear and loved so much and then just put it in a set where it stunk? Tatiova Benthic Druid. 3 green blue, 3/3, landfall, draw a card, gain a life. That's just like, this wasn't it in Foundations and made me think like, was this not it in Dominaria too? Like, is this not how I remember it? So didn't love that. That was a bad reprint for me.
All right, moving on to 14, which is the best and worst limited archetypes of 2024. Best for me, Jeskai Energy from Modern Horizons 3. I loved drafting energy decks in Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah, I went more about a classically best of the year. And I do think I would also give it to a Modern Horizons 3 archetype, but I would give it to Red-Green Writhing Chrysalis. Red-Green Eldrazi from MH3 was awesome. That's, I feel like, what was the most powerful in my mind of the year. The overlap of best and deck I liked the most would be Black-Green Squirrels from Bloomburrow.
Oh, anything from Bloomburrow winning an award is just terrible for me.
But food, rectangles, I can't say no.
That's why I have energy ahead of the Eldrazi archetype. I just didn't enjoy drafting Eldrazi, and I love drafting energy, and the power level was close enough for me. Best for me was the thing I had the most fun with. It was good. Which was best for you was
Jeskai Energy. Red X Curse Recording from Duskmorn.
Well, sure. Yeah, if we're picking a specific thing, but I figured I could wax poetic about Curse Recording when I gave it the best rare award. So I wanted to shout out something else. And I really love Smelted Charge Bug and just starting and then figuring out whether you're red-white or red-blue or white-blue and getting all those good common energy producers late. It was a really cool draft format.
Yeah, agreed. Do you have
worst for me?
No OLI.
No OLIs. This is a clean one for me.
Wow. Okay, great.
Worst for me, Green-White Survival from Duskmorn. And worst in that I also think it was good that it was the worst limited archetype of 2024. I think that was good for Duskmorn. The Survival was not a good deck.
Yeah, if it was a different mechanic or that if Green-White aggro was a better deck, that would have made the format overall a little worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I gave it to Blue-Red Plot from OTJ.
I think that's also a strong contender.
A deck that I actually kind of fondly remember in a sick way of being like, no, hear me out. If you jump through all these hoops and it's stupidly open and the games go your way, it can be a good deck, it's a big ask. So Blue-Red Plot for me.
All right, it takes us on to number 15, which are best and worst mechanic.
This is where I chose to shout out Survival as the worst mechanic of 2024, just because I thought that it was such a nothing burger of a keyword. Like, you just never cared about trying to do it or, I'll crew. And the other annoying thing was there were some vehicles, and so then randomly people could just crew with their 3/2 thing that manifested dread if it survived, and like that also felt bad. So the swings were wild. Just big thumbs down for me on survival.
Okay, if we're going worst first, my worst mechanic of 2024 goes to Warm P. Warlocks, assassins, rogues, mercenaries, and pirates.
But
The
the
outlaws
best
matter.
acronym.
Best acronym, worst mechanic was that outlaws matter from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. You could never remember what the creature types were. Was not very well supported. There was a lot of cool stuff going on in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. The Outlaws matter was not it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. The best mechanic of 2024 for me also comes from Duskmorn, and that's rooms. I
Ooh, didn't even make
loved.
my list.
Wow,
Didn't even make my list.
rooms for me felt like because I was scrolling through. I use 17 lanes mostly, and they start with the most recent set. So you do Foundations. Well, there's no like new mechanics in Foundations, and then go to Duskmorn, and I immediately was like, oh, rooms. Then scrolled all the way through the other sets, came back up, and I was like, yep, got to be rooms for me. So I'm that's interesting to me that it didn't even make your list. But I just think rooms is a sweet mechanic. I liked Eerie. I liked the overlap of rooms and Eerie. I thought it was cool. And also I think my journey of evaluating those cards I liked as well.
I agree. I think I almost think of rooms as a new card type rather than a mechanic, which is probably
Yeah.
why it's not on my list, but loved rooms as well. I do have an OLI for worst, which is
Okay.
Gift from Bloomburrow.
I knew you were going to do that.
It was so irrelevant. Why? I just did not like Bloomburrow at all, and I wanted to dig Bloomburrow in the heels here on the worst mechanics, but have a lot of best mechanics to shout out. I think there were great mechanics from at least one great one from almost every format this year. Best is a reprint from me, which is Delirium from Duskmorn. I think Delirium in Duskmorn was amazing, and how well supported it was amazing, and then all of the deck building considerations it forced you to have and draft considerations deep into the format was really, really, really cool. So
That
shout
might
out to
be
Delirium from
that
Duskmorn.
might be worth like doing a different category for, even like a best, because it feels like best original and best adapted screenplay, like they're sort of different things. Like best use of, much like best reprint and best variation on a theme are slightly different, like best use of a mechanic that's already existed being repurposed. Because I also feel like the same can be true for worst. Like, you bring back a mechanic that we liked and you're like, why is this here? What is this doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So love Delirium from Duskmorn, and also Rooms from Duskmorn. Duskmorn just what a format. Ward 2 being on Disguise from MKM was a really cool mechanic, and Morph, like being that spinning on Morph.
I thought about putting Disguise on my list. I mean, I love Rooms, but I guess Disguise would be my honorable mention. I do fondly remember that. I thought that was a well-designed mechanic. Like, I remember having this feeling of like, there's a 1 in a red deal 3, and there was Shock in that format. And coming to the conclusion of like, oh, Shock is better because it lets you trade even on mana with the Disguise creatures. And like, the Ward 2 really added a cool little twist to that format. I liked it.
Yeah. Another one from MKM, Collecting Evidence, was a really cool mechanic, and I think holds up. And also, like, just seeing some of those cards appear in Vintage Cube, like the Phoenix is still there to collect evidence 6. Collecting Evidence was just a rock solid mechanic.
Yeah, using the graveyard as a resource, always love.
Really enjoyed, despite it not being good, Plot from OTJ. I think was a very well designed, very natural mechanic. And then Crimes I really liked from OTJ. I thought that was very flavorful. Thought that was a very cool addition to the format, and I liked the committing crimes build around stuff going on in OTJ. And then I guess I do have them on here. That's not, I put it as Eerie from Duskmorn rather than Rooms, but I think all tied together, the Eerie Room life from Duskmorn is an OLI for me. But I do think to that format's success, I think I enjoyed the Delirium building and drafting more than I enjoyed Rooms existing, but all of it was just incredible.
Yeah. All right, that gets us to our last category here, which is best and worst draft format of the year. I have to imagine we have the same best, so why don't we start with worst and we can end on a positive note.
Yeah, worst for me, Bloomburrow, not close to close. I loathed Bloomburrow as a draft format. Enough so that Catherine and I, before recording this morning, she was like, what are you guys talking about on the episode today? And I was like, oh, we're going over the best and worst of 2024. And Catherine was like, oh, I know what the worst thing of 2024 was. It was that format with all the squirrels and stuff. And I was like, yep, you are correct.
Is that because she also knows that you fired 15 bullets on the Arena Open?
Probably. And she was like, well, you just talked about all the other stuff way more. I didn't hear much about that one.
Didn't hear much about the squirrels. Yeah, Bloomburrow could have made my list too. I didn't like a lot of sets from 2024, and I put Modern Horizons 3 as the worst draft format of 2024.
What?
You know,
No.
don't be surprised. You know, I did not like this format. I really didn't like this format. Writhing Chrysalis stunk. There were like almost no fun rares or good rares to open in the format. And so like when people did get good rares, it felt completely out of whack. The Writhing Chrysalis thing fell out of whack. It was terrible to play that format outside of pod because you just play someone who has like 3 Chrysalis. And I know like that we had the cold open. And so that's like probably the best thing I'll remember about the format. And part of that, the point of that cold open was that like Writhing Chrysalis is not the be all and end all. And I agree with that. But the fact that it still is like, that's the one thing I remember about that set. It does like, it's just such a blight. It is a blight, I will say. And I didn't like that set at all.
Your list. I just want my 2 cents. Even if you didn't like MH3, there was a huge discovery period the first 2 weeks of that format that was incredible.
I truly can't remember that. I'm glad you
because of Writhing Chrysalis.
I'm glad you have fond memories of it, but I don't remember that. I remember like some real power outliers and it being a format that did not age particularly well for me.
All right, moving on to the best draft format. I think a slam dunk for Duskmourn.
Duskmourn for sure. Like the crowd rejoiced, unanimous. Love Duskmourn. Best set of the year, one of my favorite sets of all time. Like just everything. Like I just have so many fond memories of, yeah, you were talking about discovery period early, discovery period late, like lots of mechanics to like, balanced stuff, individual power level, decks that are greater than the sum of their parts, just like check. Everything that you want from a set.
Yeah, Duskmourn was absolutely incredible. Pour one out for Duskmourn also. Life was cut short by
Gone Too
Foundations.
Soon.
Yeah, like Gone Too Soon. We could have had Foundations pushed back 2, 3, 4 weeks, had a little bit less Pioneer Masters.
Oh my God.
All been happier campers, but Duskmourn was incredible. I think just hit on every single metric. And I think even its archetype that fell flat, green-white, was good that it fell flat for the overall health of the format. Just super balanced, cool new things, cool twist on Delirium. Rooms were incredible. Oh, I love that format. Everything about it. Had cursed recording in it. What's not to like?
What's not to like?
So I'm curious as to your overall rankings, because I was thinking about this too. I would like to hear your 1 through 6. So for me, it's Duskmourn 1, MH3 2, MKM 3. Those last 2 very close there. MH3 and Murders at Karlov Manor. And then gigantic gap. Like, so really liked all 3 of those formats. And then a big gap. And I think it probably is OTJ in 4th, Foundations in 5th, Bloomburrow in 6th. And like all 3 of those largely missed for me. OTJ was like mid, but didn't particularly enjoy Foundations or Bloomburrow.
For me, it's Duskmourn 1, Murders 2, and then like I don't particularly care. I didn't really like the other 4 sets, but I just did a loose ranking. I hadn't ranked them before, so I'd say Duskmourn 1, Murders 2. I think I'd say Foundations 3, but that's hard because like it's not like a particularly deep set, but I didn't play it for very long, so that's also probably working in its favor. But like I thought it was fine, and like the fact that we just discovered like how to make green, like didn't feel like anything was like super out of whack in that format. I don't know. I have Bloomburrow 4th. OTJ I really didn't like. That was like a big pendulum swing in the bombs mattering thing that I didn't love. And then I'm putting MH3 in last.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry to say. But Duskmourn, but the format sort of, or the year sort of bookended, if we think about Duskmourn being the last set, even though it wasn't, but bookended by.
if we think about it like that, even though that's not true, even though it was the 4th set of the year.
Well, it was
the 5th set of the year. It was 5th set of the year.
5th, and then we had Foundations for like a second.
Yeah.
So weird. I that's my hope for 2025 is that the 6 major releases are spaced out a bit more. Like, I think if they space them out and we have them, our life cycle is every 2 months, we'll be cooking on the podcast for sure.
Yeah. All right, wrap up before we go. I have some notes on things from the year that it feels like we should discuss, which is 2024 is the year of the Play Booster.
Yeah, and I think a big plus, we did a like emergency broadcast when they announced Play Boosters.
I remember that.
And I think our main take, I mean, I'm usually like, everything's going to be fine. Change it's not a big deal. And you're usually, the sky is falling when there's change.
Hate change.
And I think it was neither of those. Like, it did change. I was like, this isn't going to change, one less card, whatever. The one less card, I mean, that actually did impact, because like the wheel, it did impact the wheel feeling real in some sets. But a good change, I think. A good change for Limited. Even though I didn't like a lot of the sets, I think I'm pro Play Booster, especially returning to... It's so funny when I was just sprinkling a little bit of Survivor chat right now, which is that Survivor now, since season 41, everyone's going to be like, done, I'm out the podcast. But it used to be 39 days on the island, and now it's 26 days. And there's a school of thought of people that's like, well, it's not as hard anymore because it's less time. And so it was better in the old era. And that just feels to me like people who are just like, back in my day, it was better because that's what I watched when I was younger or whatever. And I'm like, go back and watch the old seasons, and it's like painstaking to watch. They're like, it's day 3 and you all haven't even done a challenge yet. I don't care about you building a shelter. Like, get to the voting, get to the action of the game. And that's how I feel about Play Boosters. I'm like, go back and draft a draft booster set and tell me you like seeing junker common after junker common and getting to pick 2 and being like, everything in this pack is atrocious. What am I supposed to take? So pro Play Boosters from my side of things.
Yeah, I think also pro Play Boosters for me, which is surprising, but I think the thing I really like about it is uncommons being the new commons. I think that is great for people who like to draft a set 40, 50, 60, 70 times. You get a more varied play experience, I think, in general from Play Boosters than you do from a format. Like, really felt that in Foundations, like when commons were back to mattering. I didn't love it because your decks looked the same so much more.
Yeah. That might be, I mean, we didn't have, that's not really like a hot take during preview season, but probably one of the podcast's best takes is uncommons are the new commons.
Oh, please. You're being generous. That is your take, and I co-sign it fully, but great take by you.
Okay.
Another thing, year of Ethan on the Pro Tour 2024. That was incredible.
Brief blip, not the year of, but the year of it occurring for sure.
year of it occurring. Still, that was incredibly cool for you. And then along with that, gotta feel great about the live show at MagicCon Chicago. And I am jonesing to go back to Chicago again. I have not yet booked things. That is on my to-do list as soon as we are done recording here over the next couple days.
Awesome. I will miss you, but hopefully I'll make my way to Vegas in the summer.
Another thing, Paper Magic. This is the year Paper Magic came back, right? I mean, we haven't really talked about that much because we play digitally so much, but like the MagicCon's happening, and it felt like really, truly, like they're making a push for Standard to come back. I feel like 2024 was the year of a Paper Magic returning.
More than 2023? Weren't there also Paper Pro Tours and tournaments in 2023?
Maybe were there Magic Cons in 2023 and we just didn't go to them? Well, whatever. 2024 was when it happened for me.
Love it. Revisionist history once again.
Yeah. And then I think the people who are talking about the history are the ones who make the history, right?
That's true. We're writing the books.
I think for the podcast, the growth of the YouTube channel and YouTube shorts and all of that sort of stuff, like huge shout out to you for all the work that you've done on that for the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's been fun. It's been a lot of work, and I'm throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and trying to see what sticks, but it's been a lot of fun to work on. And thanks to everybody out there who's supporting the content that we're doing on the channel.
Yeah, and if you've not already clicked off after Survivor Chat, would strongly encourage you, if you have not yet, to go check out the podcast on YouTube. It's a really cool experience getting to see both of us talking to each other. The card images are there when we do the draft log reviews. You know, Ethan edits it really well so you can follow along easily with the picks from the drafts. I think it's just a really cool, different way to experience podcasts. And I feel of two minds about it because I also listen to another podcast that has since expanded into YouTube, the Dan Le Batard Show. which is a sports podcast, and it's expanded so much that like sometimes they're just talking about stuff that's happening on YouTube, and I'm like, hello, I'm here, podcast audience, and I'm just never going to watch that show on YouTube. So if you're podcast only, audio only, I get it, but can't hurt to go check it out once. So would encourage people over there, if they've not, check it out and like and subscribe and all that stuff.
I will say, and I'm a similar person. Like, I don't watch any podcasts, but I listen to a lot of them, and maybe that's again the boomer in me. But like the idea of watching a podcast doesn't make sense. But as many shows have expanded and started on YouTube, like that's just sort of the way the market is moving these days. But I will say, I know it's really helpful for like early set stuff. So if you're like checking out previews or crash courses when the cards are new, I think the visual component makes it a lot easier to follow along as well.
Any parting thoughts before we go?
You have any worsts from you don't want to wrap up with any worsts from the year? Only the bests?
Only the best from the year. What worst do we have from the year?
Nothing. No, we got that out of the way on Lords Unlimited, right? We got
That's right.
We got all that stuff out of the way there. No, it's been great. I'd love to put a stamp on the end of another great year of podcasting and magic and content, and excited to see what happens in 2025.
Yeah, I would say cautiously optimistic for 2025. I'm curious to see how all the Universes Beyond stuff goes as far as draft formats. You know me, I hate change. So I'm worried that those are going to fall flat. But if they don't, like, I don't think I'm going to mind playing with Spider-Man as long as it's good. As long as it's a good draft format.
Top commons. Number 1, Pineapple Under the Sea. Number 2, SpongeBob's SquarePants.
Mythic artifact equipment, legendary artifact equipment.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, everyone, have a wonderful holidays. Happy New Year to you all, and we'll catch you again in 2025. We should say thank you, as always, to Salty Pretzels for our intro and outro music. Make sure you give it a listen.
You can find all of our content on our website, lordsoflimited.com. Links to our YouTube channel. Can we expect any holiday streams from you, Ben?
There'll be some holiday magic playing from me for sure.
All right. So twitch.tv/Ben Werney, twitch.tv/Lord Tupperware. Those links over on our website as well. Our merch, courtesy of TeePublic, our Patreon page, our tier lists for formats present and past, all available at lordsoflimited.com.
If you've got any feedback about the show or any questions, shoot us an email at lordsoflimited@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next year for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.